would like to introduce the keynote speaker for today, Satu Kahkonen. This is Director of World Bank for Ukraine, Belarus and Moldova, a prominent economist who has written, I think, 3 books on economic development and has a vast experience from across the world of helping countries to develop in our region, in East Asia, Africa. So please welcome Satu Kahkonen.
For those very kind words. And good morning, everybody. So ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here today with you in this Investor Forum for Ukraine, which the CFA Society has organized. And there's a particular reason why I'm happy to be here this morning. And the reason is that I'm very bullish on Ukraine, and I'm bullish on the people of Ukraine. In my view, Ukraine has great potential. Unfortunately, that potential has not been yet fully tapped. But ultimately, a country's economic potential depends on its endowments. And we all know that Ukraine's endowments are quite vast. First of all, Ukraine is endowed with intelligent, energetic, and entrepreneurial people. But that's not the only thing. Ukraine also has extraordinarily rich soil. 35% of the world's black soil is here. There are also considerable other natural resources. And Ukraine is located at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. So, given those endowments, there's no reason why Ukraine, but under the right conditions, should not be one of the most prosperous and successful nations. However, the conditions are still far from that ultimate target. So Ukraine is not yet one of the most successful nations. Ukraine's GDP per capita was about $2,100 in 2015, while the corresponding figure for Poland was $12,500, and for Turkey and Romania, $9,000, and for Argentina, $13,000. So Ukraine is lagging behind some of its compatriots in the world. But if you look at the flip side is that Ukraine, if Ukraine is able to put in place the right conditions, proceed with right reforms, it can experience a period of very strong growth, and it can catch up and converge with those countries that I just mentioned. But then the big question is that what are those conditions? What is it that Ukraine should do? And how does Ukraine get from where it is today to where it's aspiring to go? So let's start with the question, where is Ukraine today? As you all know very well, but you know even better than me because you live in Ukraine, you have lived here longer than I have, that Ukraine has been hit by 2 very big and unprecedented shocks. First of all, you have the conflict in the East, and second, the global economic environment deteriorated significantly in the past few years. And that included sharply lower commodity prices, which affected Ukraine, but also a number of other countries. But the impact of these dual shocks on Ukraine has been very significant. Again, as you all know, the real GDP contracted by 6.6% in 2014, and by a further 10% in 2015. The currency depreciated sharply, and the consolidated fiscal deficit reached over 10% of GDP in 2014. And a number of large banks failed, and the level of non-performing loans very rapidly increased. So you all know that very well. You have lived it through, we have all basically observed and also seen it through. The crisis, however, has had an opportunity for Ukraine. And it has had an opportunity for change. So if you look back, and if you look back 15 years, for much of the past 15 years, Ukraine has faced very favorable external conditions, except the past few years. Prior to 2013, capital flowed freely into Ukraine as well as to other emerging markets. Also, the commodity prices were booming, so life was good. But as a result, Ukraine was able to grow without taking structural reforms and without addressing the inefficiencies that were inherent in the economy. And it led to an unsustainable pattern of growth. It wasn't obvious during those boom years, not necessarily, not to everybody, that this is not sustainable. But the crisis then in 2014 basically brought out to the open the unsustainability of the policies that had been followed. So the past sins, one may say, were basically there for everybody to see. But as I said earlier, crisis has also been an opportunity. The crisis since 2014 has forced a change, and I'm very pleased that the people of Ukraine have also grabbed the opportunity to pursue a change. There are a lot of reforms that have been taken in the past few years. And in fact, in the past 3 years, your governments have taken more reforms than they had in the past 15 years. So there is a significant opportunity here if the reforms continue. Ukraine has adopted very decisive reforms to stabilize the economy, reduce large macroeconomic imbalances, and cushion the impact of shocks on the population. So some of the reforms that have been taken, let me mention some of them, because I don't think that people are looking back often enough and appreciating how much has been done so far. First of all, there has been a move to a flexible exchange rate. There has been significant fiscal consolidation. There has been a reform of energy tariffs to reduce a key source of rents and quasi-fiscal deficits that existed in the system. The social safety net has been strengthened. The household and utility subsidy scheme has been put in place. What is closer to you is the banking system. The banking system has been more or less stabilized by putting in a framework to resolve and recapitalize banks, to strengthen the supervision, and to address the long-standing problem of related lending. There are a lot of problems in the banking sector, as you know. There has also been a streamlining of business environment. Registration of companies has been eased, licensing has been eased, and deregulation has started move forward. And lately, as you all know, there has been also a move towards more decisive implementation of anti-corruption measures. The asset declaration that we are reading in the papers, it's a major step forward. But as a result of all of these reforms, the economy has now more or less stabilized. And what we are observing, what the macroeconomists are observing, are initial signs of rebound. But unfortunately only in select industries so far. But the real GDP grew by 1.1% in the first 3 quarters in this year. The government deficit has been brought down from the 10% of GDP in 2014 to 2% of GDP in 2015. And again, as you know very well, the banking sector has been cleaned up with the closure of over 80 banks, and the process still continues. So quite a bit has been done, but much more is still to be done. You're not where you want to be and where you should be at this point. The strong and sustained recovery has not yet taken hold. And poverty, unfortunately, has increased in Ukraine during the crisis years. So, way forward, what does Ukraine need to do? This is now the opportunity and this is now the time for Ukraine to start addressing the deep structural bottlenecks that have constrained the economic growth in the past 15 years. And there's also a need to intensify anti-corruption and governance reforms to control the vested interests. Without a further reform momentum, so without proceeding with further structural reform, economic prospects will remain very weak and large macroeconomic imbalances, they can return, and the population may be again adversely affected as a result of that. But again, then the flip side, if the reforms now move, if there's a further reform momentum to bolster investor confidence and productivity, economic growth could pick up to 3 to 4% in the medium term. We are doing economic forecasting in the World Bank twice a year, and this is what we are seeing. With reforms, there is a chance for quite a fast rebound. Without reforms, we are worried what will happen. And with even greater reform momentum, Ukraine might be able to generate the conditions for very rapid economic growth and convergence to the income levels of those countries that I mentioned earlier. So that is the choice that Ukraine faces today, reforms or no reforms. And this investment forum is an excellent opportunity for all of you to discuss the substance of what are those conditions that are needed and what are the prospects for further reforms. So I wish you all very fruitful and productive discussions today, and my colleagues who will be in other panels will also then be talking about some of those conditions that, in the view of the World Bank, would need to be put in place for Ukraine to reach its potential. So thank you very much.